live on the air. I'm Richard Saile.
This is wild.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Lounge Time. I'm your host, Rich Saile, and today on the episode of 2026 Offseason Grades, we are going over the New Orleans Saints, our first team in the NFC South that we are touching in this series. They had two things that just happened to them. One was an extension of one of their key guys, and another may have torn his ACL in training camp. We're going to get to that immediately after we're done with this intro, but made some quiet moves that helped fill the overall depth of the roster. Added a new running back that might be their starter over Alvin Kamara going into the season. We're going to get into that in just a moment when we go over their roster. Also added another weapon on offense to Tyler Shough in year 2. First round pick from Arizona State, Jordan Tyson. We're going to get into that more. But without further ado, let's get into this episode on the New Orleans Saints and their offseason grade. This was a team that caught some fire last year, played a lot better in the last third of the season. Maybe the last quarter is a better term I want to use. Over the last 4 to 5 games, maybe 7, they were playing better. And originally last year, they were projectedly supposed to be the worst team. They proved a lot of people, including myself, wrong, that they were not the worst team in the league last year. Kellen Moore's group found some momentum. And I thought they did a very decent job with filling out the depth of this roster. Let's get into what did they do in the offseason. Well, they kept most of their guys that they wanted. They added Caden Ellis. Well, they kept Caden Ellis. They brought in Noah Fant to help their tight end room. They added some guys to their edge room to help out the old vets like Cam Jordan. They brought in Tyree Wilson from Las Vegas in a trade, which is low risk, but could be high reward if he has a really nice breakout season. They moved on from Chase Young a couple years back. So Tyree Wilson, could he have a good year with Brandon Staley's defense? Maybe. But they were a little bit quiet in free agency. They added Travis Etienne, which was a position they needed to upgrade because Alvin Kamara was not a guy that looked like he could be an RB1 for them down the road. And Etienne did pretty solid with the Jaguars, even though they used multiple backs throughout the season. I think Travis Etienne being the number 1 back and Alvin Kamara being it on passing downs, that's going to be a really nice move for Tyler Shough to have somebody that he can hand the ball off to. And they need to get their run game going better. And Etienne, I think, is going to be a really good piece for Kellen Moore's offense in terms of establishing the run more and taking the pressure off Tyler Shough and having to throw 25, 30-plus pass attempts per game. Now, their draft class. They had a really solid group. And I'm going to go to that real quick now. Jordan Tyson, their first-round pick from Arizona State, has some injury issues that made him slide a little bit, but this duo between Tyson and Olave is exactly what they needed to do to build around their young quarterback. That was a very good pick because Carnell Tate was off the board and Tyson was supposed to be receiver 2 or 3, and there was talk, were they going to take Delane from LSU? Were they going to go Tyson? And I'm sure there's another name I'm forgetting, but the draft was a little while ago, so I might be a little rusty with my memory there. But nevertheless, this is a very good pick because now you have 2 guys. Olave is your guy that can work the middle of the field Tyson is your home run threat where he can take the secondary attention and the safeties, and then Olave can work in the middle. Hoping he does not get any more concussions, which is big. And I'm going to say that for when I go to the news on Chris Olave's extension. Kristen Miller, the defensive tackle from Georgia. This is a good pick because they get deeper on the defensive line. Oscar Delp, young tight end to go with Noah Fant, and they just lost Taysom Hill. So Oscar Delp is better than Taysom Hill unless you want to be Wildcat Gadget type shit, which I'm not going to really worry about specific Wildcat packages, but Oscar Delp is a really good tight end that can block, that can catch. Jeremiah Wright from Auburn, the guard, good pick there. Bryce Lance, I heard a little bit about him from North Dakota State that he was a good receiver. I actually think he could be a guy that could play certain packages like 4 or 5 wide if they find room for him on the roster. Lorenzo Styles Jr., who is Sonny Styles' brother. Very fast safety. They got some depth there. And Barian Brown from LSU. I heard about him in the game against Clemson and early on when I watched LSU before they completely fell apart. And then TJ Hall, the corner from Iowa. Really good pick to add to their secondary room. So I thought they really addressed the depth at key areas for this team to be better heading into 2026. And I really think this is a really good move for them to improve the roster, especially in a division that is wide open still. But let's finish out the roster moves. So looking at what they did give Cam Jordan a 1-year deal. So they brought the veteran in to help the young guys. Anthony Jennings, Martin Emerson on defense, good role players. I don't think you're going to see them play many snaps, but they're going to be good role players that will be solid. And then looking at the big news that happened within the last 48 to 72 hours. So the first one being defensive tackle Bryan Breese dealing with potentially feared to be a torn ACL injury, which would really hurt this team up front because he is not only an edge rusher that can defend the run, he is supposed to be one of their young pass rushers due to break out, and their depth will be tested up front a little bit. John Ridgway is the backup edge on ESPN, which I don't feel like is entirely accurate. Carl Granderson, Anthony Jennings, those guys are solid. Chase Young's actually still on the team. So that was my mistake. Let me correct that. So they have good edge pieces, but when you have Brees kind of playing that 3 technique, you're really relying on health to be the case. Do they move Kristen Miller up a little bit in there? Vernon Broughton now might have to get some meaningful snaps in a defensive tackle. Tyree Wilson's more of an edge guy. So again, it's their D-line depth now might be taking a hit depending on what the injury is. Again, they fear it's a torn ACL for Bryan Breese, which would be a pretty big loss for the Saints defense up front because that unit was actually one of their bright spots at flashes last season when you actually look at what they did well. And surprisingly, Brandon Saile as a defensive coordinator, he actually did pretty solid with this group. The other big news was Chris Olave got a huge payday, which the going rate for receivers, I shouldn't say I'm surprised by it, but the terms on Chris Olave's extension, it's worth up to $132 million, 4 years, including $90 million guaranteed. He is a good player, yes. But when you're banking on a guy with concussions, it's a roll of the dice, a huge roll of the dice, especially for a team that is trying to lock up their key guys. But when you know this guy has a concussion history, it is a huge investment on a guy that you're banking on to stay healthy. And I don't know if this contract is worth it. I understand that they might not be able to get a better receiver out there through trade or on the free agent market right now. I get that. But it is a huge investment, a huge roll of the dice on Olave not sustaining any more concussions because when healthy, he's actually a very good player. But he's not heavy of the elites when you think of receivers. Like, he might be top 20. I don't know if I can go top 15. and I'm trying to think of 15 off the top of my head quickly. I would have to do that another day, but huge risk of this potentially being a bad contract if he can't stay healthy, especially with the 2 concussion history, which is concerning. But that is the Saints' offseason moves and news right now as we are now approaching training camp. Let's go over this Saints depth chart right now as we speak. Let's go over the offense first. This is actually a really good young offense. I believe that will surprise people. I would not be shocked at all if this offense is in the middle of the pack to maybe in the 14-ish range. I could see them being as high as 14. When you got Tyler Shough going into year 2 in the league, but now you got defensive coordinators that are studying a couple games on what he did well, what he didn't do well, and they're going to try to see what he struggles with and where he excels. Am I going to say that the Saints have found their franchise guy at this moment? Not yet, because we need to see a full season of sample size of what Tyler Shough can do. We've only seen a select few of games where he's looked good, and yes, they played well with him, but what about a full year now where off-season coordinators look and see what you do well and don't do well? And what does Shough do to adjust and take the leap in his game? I wanted to see that before we declare him their franchise quarterback. I think that's a fair assessment for 2026. Is this the year Tyler Shough proves he's a franchise quarterback for the Saints? That will be my judgment question for this team heading into this year. I think he has a very strong case to be if he can build on what he did well last year. But as of right now, that is TBD. It is unknown. I think he will be the guy that can prove that he will. Travis Etienne at the number 1 running back spot. Alvin Kamara is now the running back 2. And then you have Kendre Miller and Devin Neal rounding out the 3rd and 4th string running backs. And then this receiver room is a little bit better, but not drastically better. You have Olave and Tyson, the locks. They'll be the key vocal points there. Devon Saile, he's the guy that pops off. He could pop off here and there. I would not be surprised if you see him in a couple plays. Barry Brown. Oh my God, they have Jalen Polk. I do remember when the Saints traded for him in the early part of 2025, and I was like, wow, they actually got Jalen Polk. So I hope he can revive his career a little bit, but he has problems with catching passes. He was supposed to be great with his hands, I remember, as a Patriot fan, and he just didn't work out. So he's second-string wide receiver, but it's slightly better with Tyson being drafted. That was a good pick for them. Their tight ends, Juwan Johnson's the number 1 option. He was a guy that you saw them feature more, and he's been a featured point in this offense. Noah Fant, Oscar Delp. I think this group is good from the skill group, but they're missing one solid role player to one guy that can elevate this team. And they may have Olave be that guy that takes a leap this year. It could be Jordan Tyson. But there's just one guy I think they need in this offense for me to go, okay, they can be a consistent playoff contending team that they need. Whether that is an extra receiver, whether that is Shough making the jump from just capable, can hold the fort down to a future franchise quarterback. It's something, one piece has to just align everything for this team to be a consistent playoff team down the road, especially in a weak division. Now, the offensive line, it is a good group. Kelvin Banks Jr. at the left tackle spot, going into his second year from the University of Texas. Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. They got good tackles. Cesar Ruiz is the right guard, with David Edwards being the left guard, and then Eric McCoy is the center. Good group, not as deep, but this is a solid offensive line. It's definitely in the middle of the road, and Kellen Moore's got a good group, but it's not it's not an elite group yet. But again, this is year 2 of what is supposed to be a rebuilding team. They're making the right moves, and that's all that counts. And I'm confident you're going to see a jump to at least an average offense for this Saints group. Now, this defense, which surprised people last year, will be solid. I think you'll see them be solid again this year. I do. Cam Jordan being the veteran, Davon Godchaux, another former Patriot, being the nose tackle. Who knows what the significance of Bryan Breese's injury is. I think it's looking like he might be out for the season. Again, I don't know definitively, but when you have a torn ACL, it most likely means your season is done. So the depth of this group will be tested, especially at the defensive line with Brandon Staley's 3-4 defense. Carl Granderson, Chase Young at the starting edge spots, Pete Werner, Caden Ellis at the inside linebacker spot. Danny Stutzman is the backup inside linebacker, and I remember him from Oklahoma. Good player, very good player. And then their secondary, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Riley, Jonas Sanker, solid corners. Justin Reed and Julian Blackman at the safety group. Not bad, actually. Average group, maybe slightly above average. This group, to me, Chase Young is not, he has not lived up to being a top 2 to 3 pick. Injuries have gotten the best of him after his rookie season. But this is a solid group. And again, they lost to Mario Davis, which was their anchor, their signal caller of the defense, which, again, they had to go younger. So this is a group that is looking for that guy to be the name post Cam Jordan, when Cam Jordan does retire. Now, Justin Reed's a good player. Chase Young is a decent player. Davon Godchaux can defend the run. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a good corner in this league. Julian Blackman is good at free safety. They're just looking for the building block to build this defense around when Cam Jordan retires. And I think they have good pieces, but I think they're one name away from becoming a team that is maybe in that 6-11, 8-9, 9-8 ceiling to maybe a 11-6 ceiling. Like, they need a guy that gets offensive coordinators' attention going, okay, we got to worry about him wrecking this game plan. And they haven't had many of those since Sean Payton left in 2021, and Trey Hendrickson left for the Bengals, being one of those guys, and some of those guys. Marshawn Lattimore leaving for the Commanders a couple years back. So this group just has to find the guy they can build their defense around, their cornerstones they have to do. It's like I was saying about some of these other teams that are struggling on defense to find those cornerstones. And I'm trying to remember which team specifically I said earlier in the series. The Saints are one of those teams that has to find that cornerstone. And I'm trying to think briefly who it is. Because that's where the Saints are at. They got to find cornerstones. Offensively, they have their guys locked up. Now it's the other side of the ball to be good enough to get to the playoffs in a weak division. So this roster, I expect, truthfully, they will be an above average to average team on both sides of the ball, where you might see it, you will see a slight improvement, but not much from a wins-losses standpoint. But this team will be more competitive, I am confident, in 2026. Let's go to the schedule. And then I will answer the big questions, what I think this team needs to, well, Tyler Shough being the franchise quarterback is number one. And then that's pretty much the main question. So let's get to the schedule, where they open up at Detroit and at Baltimore in their first 2 weeks. That's a tough schedule to start. Two games, not tough schedule. 2 games to open up on the road. I think they're going to lose both of those games on the road. I think it's too tall of a task to ask Tyler Shough to beat one of those teams. Well, the Lions would be the favorable one, but I do believe that the Lions' loss will be close. They'll lose against the Ravens. I think they're going to go to 0-2. Then they play the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe they will beat them to go to 1-2. Atlanta on Monday night. I am on the record. I am doing the Falcons next week. I just graded them. You guys should beat Atlanta. 2-2. Vikings, another team I'm doing this week. 3-2. I'm not sold on what I'm seeing from Minnesota. At the Giants, if this was in New Orleans, I would give them the win. I'm going to say 3-3. Now, this is overseas against the Steelers. I know when I did the Steelers, I had them winning that game. I had them around that record-wise. I actually believe they can beat the Steelers. I really do. I think this is a good... The Steelers are going the wrong way. The Saints are on the way up. I'm going to say the Saints go 4-3 entering the bye week. I'm going to say that. Cleveland, Carolina, they're going to win both, 6-3. At Chicago, that's a loss. At Cincinnati is a loss, 6-5. Okay, Green Bay at home, that's a win, 7-5. At Carolina, I'm going to say that's a loss. They split with the Panthers. Tampa will be a split, 7-7. Arizona, 8-7. At Atlanta's tricky. I'm going to say 8-9 for the Saints. With a shot at first place if the chips fall where it goes. Because Tampa Bay should win that division. Carolina won it last year. They slightly improved on defense. New Orleans will be in the thick of things. But I don't know if this is the year they can win the division. I think they have a good chance to. If everything falls their way and they make the necessary leaps from players like Shough and some guys on defense, this could be a team that does win the division this year. Because it's so wide open and it's so unknown who can do it. No one thought Carolina was going to win the division last year. No one did. This team could be the surprise division winner. People go, huh? But if you really paid attention, this team played better at the end last year. This Saints team, I think, will be an 8-9 team. I'm going to say they're an 8-9 team. Which leads me to my grade for the Saints offseason. I've been on a stretch with B's. I promise this is not a B. But I'm going to go with a B-. Because they did get better with the depth of the roster. They got Jordan Tyson, big needed receiver, I meant to say. Big needed receiver. I didn't factor in the injuries yet. I mean, the injury to Brees, and I didn't factor in the Olave extension. But now, with the news of the Olave extension, this, to me, doesn't move it so much because it actually helps that they kept their number one receiver. They added to the depth of their room with another one, and they got Travis Etienne to help out Kamara, so they addressed the right offensive needs. Defensively is where I'm not so sure. They got better depth-wise, but they're missing that one key piece. So my thinking is this. Are they a year away from being a playoff contender? They very well are a year away. And it reminds me a lot of what the Lions are doing, what we're doing with Dan Campbell earlier when we first started this show. They could very well be a playoff team next year. Maybe this year because of how weak the division is. They are going to be improved. I'm going to say they're going to be 8-9. I'm going with a B-. They made the right moves, but nothing to where they were elevating towards maybe that B+ range. Not there, but I'm going to lock in the B- for the Saints as their 2026 offseason grade. So that is the New Orleans Saints offseason grade. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you guys can get all the latest content for the offseason grades leading up into the preseason episode where I will give my Super Bowl 61 matchup and my playoff teams. You do not want to miss it. That will be in late August. That's when this offseason grade series should end. You can also follow me at LoungeTimePod on X. Yes, I will tweet during preseason because I will be watching New England Patriots games because I'm a Patriots fan. And yes, if you have a question for the show, tweet at me. I promise I will answer on the show and give you the attention that you guys need. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into Lounge Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys on the next episode of 2026 Offseason Grades.